What's here, y'all? Welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, it's opening weekend at the spa. It's Diana Day, and we've got a pick five sequence that has a couple of stakes. The Diana is the anchor, but we've also got, as the first leg, the Bowling Green, which is a Grade 2 eighth race on the card, running a mile and 3/8 on the inner turf for 4-year-olds and up. And this is a pretty good field, I think. We've got some very interesting horses in here. Far Bridge is certainly the favorite, but um, I'm going to try to beat. And the reason being is I really like, well, let's just talk about Far Bridge. I'll say I like this horse. You know, I love that Sword Dancer last year was an absolute thing of beauty with Joel Rosario taking him all the way and defeating Measured Time and Slipknot, or Silver Knot rather. And this is a nice horse that I like, But here's the thing: the last couple races, um, I think this horse suffered from running against soft fields for a couple, and then when had to step it up a little bit, was kind of caught flat-footed. Now, with a race under him, it's very conceivable that he can run a better race. But the thing is, this isn't a dominating horse. You take away the Sword Dancer. This horse is very professional, is a solid performer, but you don't look at Farbridge and say they're head and shoulders above everybody else. Well, when you have that type of situation, can you really like a horse at 6 to 5? Especially when you step up in class to a grade 2 where there's some comparable performers. And that's kind of the where I'm going at. I'm going to use Farbridge without a doubt, mostly in my exotics type of betting. But I'm just at 6 to 5. That price is too short for me, so I'm going to look elsewhere. Corruption is a horse that I certainly has become is a better horse the longer they go. Um, I like the effort the last couple, and I think this horse is not going to. I'm not bothered by Tucson on the lead and has a very good shot. As we know, that a lot of these long distance races are won on the front end, and Saratoga has been playing lately to speed on the turf. And we don't know exactly how it's played pretty fair today for opening day, but it always has that potential. And the way they run turf races in New York, speed on the front end is very deadly. So we'll go with the upset with Corruption for that reason, because you've got a lot of horses who are going to be running from off the pace who aren't necessarily keen to be up amongst the leaders. So I think that creates a bit of a gap. El Brazil is a horse who definitely likes it longer, and I like in this spot. I'm just worried he's not quite up to snuff as far as a win candidate, but I think at 8 to 1 it offers excellent value. Web Slinger too, um, I think is another one that it certainly merits consideration here, but it it's a weird race here because you don't have necessarily a stone closer, and you don't have really any stalkers, and you don't have any, you don't have a real confirmed front runner. So it's kind of a weird race from that perspective. But there's just so many late runners. I think Corruption's got a really good shot to take them all the way, and that's what I'm going to go with, particularly when I'm not sure that we can necessarily stamp Farbridge as a solid favorite that will absolutely win this race, particularly at a short price. So we'll go with Corruption in the Bowling Green for the mild upset. The second leg of the late pick five is an N1X allowance. Now winners at 2 lifetime for 100,000. Ninth race on the card. We're on a mile and an eighth on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. And this is one of your typical Saratoga allowance race corkers. This is a pretty tough race. It's needless to say, the Chad Brown coupled entry, Move to Gold, and Debt Limit are the favorites. And I'll just make my plaint as I do every year. Naira, please get rid of the coupled entries. They're archaic, they're useless, and they're a waste of time. And all they do is muck things up. If you look here, there are two numbers. There's a post position in parentheses, and then there The program number rather is in parentheses. The post position is in brackets, and that's because of the archaic, useless coupled entries. So anyway, hope that clears that up. Enough of a rant. Let's talk about the race. Um, there's pretty much, I think Gilded Kraken is likely to be the lone speed, and that certainly would be attractive to me. But this horse has a tendency to give things up, and this is a pretty big field. I think it might be a real tall order to take them all the way, so I won't go that way. However, Common Defense is a rather interesting horse to me. This one totally has turf pedigree, and we remember this one for Kenny McPeak from the Derby Trail last year, and showed signs of ability at Oaklawn. Um, but obviously it wasn't able to continue on with the improvement. But if you look, this horse really should belong on the grass and should relish it. This isn't Kenny McPeak's game. He doesn't bring horses off long layouts. He doesn't do a lot on the turf, but just kind of throwing in a wild card. As I may have mentioned before, Kenny McPeak to me is just one of those trainers that um, you see him in these peculiar spots, and there's a reason for it because he sort of has a formulaic way of going things with the way he goes about things. So when you do see them in these unusual circumstances, I think you have to take note. So at 10 to 1, I think that's a pretty good price for a horse who should like the turf, and the works are pretty decent. So we'll throw in Common Defense. Taraj is very obvious for Bill Mott. He's pretty good with shippers coming in from Europe. This one's had some good company, and it's only logical. The only thing I would say is that the first start for Bill Mott's usually means it's an educational type of race or a tightener, and generally it's an optional claimer or an allowance. I would certainly have to believe this horse will be running in stakes races, probably later in the meet at Saratoga. So whether or not this one is tuned up all the way remains to be seen. I would tend to think probably not. So I think Taraj is certainly good enough to win this race. I just think condition wise, probably it'll be the next race when you want to really bet with both hands. But we'll definitely use Taraj. Too good otherwise. The Chad Brown entry is pretty obvious. I think Debt Limit is of the two, the one that is more likely. Um, I was close to putting this one on top, but the outside post is a bit of an issue, especially for a horse who probably wants to be up amongst the leaders. Flavian Pratt certainly is appealing, and this horse certainly is headed in the right direction. And it's Chad Brown at Saratoga, so there's a lot to like here. It's just a big field, and I don't know. I just don't see that separation necessarily where you go, oh, automatically Debt Limit, no problem. And the other thing is in a 12-horse field, this horse is certainly going to get bet down. So I want a price. So I'm going to go with Zen. And for Phil Antonacci is a sneaky good trainer at Saratoga. Every year, particularly early on in the meet, he seems to throw one in there. And I've seen that as a trend a couple of times. Then is a horse who I think is a pretty good fit here, has some decent form. You're getting 6 to 1 is a pretty good price. And it just seems like a natural spot for Phil Antonacci to strike, so that's what I'm going to go with. We're going to certainly use other horses in here, then I'm going to kind of go. It just kind of looks like a race that I want to price here, so we'll go with then. Better lucky than good is more for underneath than anything else, I would say. Um, it was a pretty good horse here, but look at all the closers. That's really the issue to me more than anything else. I never like to see that many back there because there's so many traffic issues that can occur. Um, so if I'm going to go that way, I'll take Zen, for a price because just kind of the way I see this race. I don't think it's the easiest one in the world to pick. So why not? We'll go with a price. Hopefully it'll be the graveyard of favorites that we know Saratoga to be. So I'll take Zen in the ninth race. Third leg of the pick five is an optional claimer at 100,000. It's the 10th race on the card, run at 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And if you know one thing about Saratoga, this race I think is pretty definitive about it. it is made for horses for the course. There's a lot. This track breeds horses who love the track and maybe aren't as good anywhere else than excuse me than any other track. And there's certain sires that their get just run better here than they do anywhere else. Speightstown is one in particular that he's always at the top of the sire list of horses who win wins at Saratoga. This is a great example of it. What I went with here, when you look at this field, is horses for the course. These are horses who are good at Saratoga. General Partner, I'm going with on top, and really, you look at his track record, it's awful hard to bet against him. At Saratoga at 7 furlongs, he's just lights out. He isn't anywhere else, but at Saratoga, he's a superstar. So I'm going to go with him, and I think 5-2 is almost is pretty generous. Lightman also has a good record at Saratoga. I think he's coming in to this race in good form. Ran pretty well last time. No match for Baby Yoda, but it was his second start of the form cycle, coming in third off the layoff with a good record at the track. I think he's one to consider at 10-1. I think you're getting a pretty good price. Illuminaire, same thing. He's very good at Saratoga. He had got his maiden here. First two races, I believe he won at Saratoga, and he's had his moments. But I think they've got him in a good place at 7 furlongs, and again, he's at a track that he really likes, and I think he seems to be elevated by it. So we're going to throw Illuminaire in the mix underneath. Scotland for Bill Mott. This was a horse who won the Curlin at 3 years old, which was a bit of a surprise. Didn't work out around 2 turns, so they repurposed him back to sprints. This is a good distance for Scotland, and again, a horse who likes Saratoga. Would be coming from off the pace, and I just don't know at Saratoga if that's necessarily the best place to be. But he's got a puncher's chance in here. I don't think he's quite fast enough to deal with General Partner, but I think he's one that you can include in the mix. I want to say something about Concrete Glory for Saffie Joseph. Obviously, a horse who's 4 for 4 at the distance, who runs, hundreds, Brisnet speed figures every time at 7 furlongs would be hard to overlook. But I'm not so sure he takes his track with him when he leaves the state of Florida. That's really the only question I have about Concrete Glory. You can't. Too bad he just lost the rider. I mean, there's nothing you could say about that. But the race prior to that, his last race, I should say, where he ran up against a pretty staunch field. Bookham Dano amongst others. I mean, that was a good field, and he had the rail. I thought he ran his race, and he just wasn't near good enough. If there's, you have to believe if that had been at Gulfstream, it would have been a different story. So I'm just not so sure he's as good outside of Florida. Now, this isn't the same type of field he faced last time, but you do have a pretty salty bunch, and for that reason, I'm going to let him go. I just wanted to qualify that, so if you wonder why he's off the list of horses to think about, that's it. This, to me, in many respects, I'm thinking about General Partner as a single because I really think that when a horse is just this good at this distance, particularly when he's on a track that he really loves, he's going to be awful hard to beat. Just as an example, some of you may remember, about 20 years ago, there was a horse at Saratoga named Pomeroy. You couldn't beat him at 7 furlongs at Saratoga. You could beat him other places, but not at the Spa. And I think General Partner is kind of fallen into that mix. So we'll go with General Partner in the 10th. The featured race of the day at Saratoga on Saturday is the Diana. It's a Grade 1, 11th race on the card, running a mile and an eighth on the inner turf for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. Small field, but this is a really solid field. Up and down. This is a tough race. Really is. I mean, it's hard to separate any one from the other. And so when to me, when you have a situation like this, um, I think it's imperative that you try to find a price because um, while she feels pretty is even money here, I don't know that, particularly with her last couple of races, that I could necessarily say that while she probably is a deserving favorite here, I think even money might be a little short. I would say 2-1 is probably more realistic in my opinion. But that being said, we'll take a look at them. Be Your Best. I thought just the fractions were just a little too quick last time, and really couldn't settle. And I'm not going to blame her for that. This is a horse who really likes Saratoga, and just seems to be in really good form right now. And I don't know that anybody's going to be really overly keen to give her a lot of bother on the front end. And if that's the case, this horse free on the front end, particularly in a small field, is very dangerous. At 6-1, I like the price. That's really what I'm going for here more than anything else, just given the level of talent in this race. And incidentally, we do have an individual post on this for more in-depth analysis. She feels pretty. The last two races, she hadn't done anything wrong at all. I just wonder if maybe she's not quite as dominant at 4 years old. I'm running amongst older horses than she was at 3. Just the last two efforts, she won, but I just wanted to kind of splitting hairs here, and I admit it. I just wanted to see it be a little more convincing than that. So third time, or so we'll see third off the layoff. Certainly, a better effort is likely. She's going to run a good race. I have no doubt about that, and she can certainly win this race. I'm just going to try to beat her with Be Your Best based upon the race shape in a small field. Choicia is interesting in that 2 back. She ran a great race, but she had the rail. She had everything in her favor. A perfect trip. And then her last one, I really couldn't find much of an excuse, to be honest. She just sort of ran around the track, really never put much of an effort in. And, I mean, it was a little wide, okay, but I just think it was kind of a bounce off of what was a really big effort. And, it underscores the point. I never like to bet back horses who have just a dream ride, a dream trip, and win a race, like she did at Keeneland in the Jenny Wiley. And I don't think that this race, if we have any rain or whatnot, softens things up. I don't know, but Choice is certainly one to consider in this race. I'm just going to try to go with others in here because that last race, I'd like to see a little more consistency before I get head over heels over a horse. Although her form in Europe was pretty good. Lady Claypool is one that is certainly up against it coming from California. We know it's a different animal out there, not quite as talent laden as you get in the East, but she loves a mile and an eighth, and she's in really good form. And at 20-1 in a 6-horse field, I'm not willing to throw anybody out really, and so with the odds, I'll throw her in the mix. Not a win candidate, but certainly underneath for your exotics. Excellent Truth, you got a couple of seconds, and you got to wonder when this one's ever going to get over the hump. I think it's certainly good enough to win this race. The question's going to be the race shape with Be Your Best being alone on the front end. That's really it more than anything else. Would be my second choice to win this race, and I think certainly can, but I just don't know if the scenario is going to be ripe for it with a small field and with a lone speed. But Excellent Truth, I think, is certainly one to consider. Dynamic pricing, full disclosure, I just don't like this horse. I really never have, to be honest. I think this one's in pretty good form. You want to use her, fine. I think at a mile she's a little better than she might be at a mile and an eighth. That's really the issue more than anything else for me. But just looking at this field, you could say that you can make a case for just about anybody in here, and you're not wrong, I think. But we're going to go with Be Your Best to try to take them all the way in the Diana. Last leg of the late pick five is, of course, the ubiquitous maiden special weight at 100,000. They just have to do it to us, don't they? Even at Saratoga. Just Naira, come on. At some point, uh, you've got to change your ways and get with the times, and just having these maidens at the end are it. Well, anyway, you know you play. It's the 12th race on the cards. 5.5 furlongs on the turf for 3-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. Wide open. All the usual suspects have entrance here. My Divine Spirit for Chad Brown. First time starter. Last leg. Don't know too much about Bated Breath as a sire. But, European lineage probably means going to be okay on turf. The last work is not something you see too often from a Chad Brown firster. Uh, 11 out of 100 and something. So that's a pretty good sign that this horse is ready to roll. It's Saratoga. It's where Chad Brown wants to shine. It's where he's from. So I think My Divine Spirit certainly merits consideration. Girls Rock is my pick to win this. Just look at her back class. I mean, she's run against in one key race after another. Now, she hasn't won, but she has placed against some pretty good horses. And so to me, that would signal that perhaps if you want to qualify this one as a little bit of a drop in class, as it were. I think Girls Rock looks pretty good in this spot. Panache for Cherie DeVoe and Jose Ortiz. It's a dynamite competition. This one's had a few bites at the apple, though, and hasn't quite got it together. But as we know with Cherie DeVoe, sometimes her 2-year-olds don't sparkle early on, but once they debut at 3, then you maybe will see something. So Panache, probably at a really good price, I think is a horse that you certainly want to keep in your mix. And then finally, number 9, Gellhorn, or Gellhorn, whichever it might be, for Katie Davis, everybody's favorite jockey at Saratoga. Happy always is a great credit to the sport, and let's see her get a few wins. This one isn't bad. I didn't mind the last effort. I thought was a good sustained drive. I didn't see that electricity in the stretch that you guys have heard me talk about. It's just more of a grinding type of effort. And for that reason, I mean, at 5.5 furlongs, I'm not so sure that's the winning ticket. But I think is good enough to merit consideration, and with the right circumstances, has a shot. So I'll throw Gellhorn in there, and we'll root for Happy Davis to get one home. Regalton's finally the last one on the rail, number 1. The rail in any maiden race can be a little dicey, but her first start was pretty impressive. Lost to a runaway winner, Luna Luske, who just bolted out of the gate and then kind of hung on at the end. Regalton had a nice sustained drive on synthetic surface, and usually that translates pretty well to turf. And I thought it was a really solid effort when you consider how much that she persisted, which I always like to see, especially out of a first-time starter. So Regalton certainly is one that could steal it on the front end. I'm going to have a little bit of company from She Wants War and Fast Market. But I think Regalton is a bit of a sleeper, and I do like the price at 8-1. This is by no means a race set in stone. Certainly, it's going to be tough because this is one you're really going to want to watch him in the paddock, I think. And obviously, if we're playing a sequence, we're not going to get that chance. But based upon what I see here in the race replays, I like Girls Rock in the final leg of the late pick 5. So let's take a look at our ticket. So here's what our ticket looks like for Saturday's late pick 5. In the leg 1, race 8, in the Bowling Green, we're going to go with 5 and 8. I think they're the two most viable options, liking the 8 the most. That's my best selection is highlighted. Leg 2, race 9, we're going to spread a little bit. 1, 3, 9, and 10. We're going with the upset with Then. And Phil Antonacci, come through for me, buddy, as you often do when early on in the meet. Leg 3, race 10, we're going to signal General Partner. I think he's a horse for the course. And he looks to me, if he runs the kind of races he normally does at 7 furlongs at the Spa, everybody's playing for second. Leg 4, race 11, the Diana. We're going to go with, again, a very tough field, but we're going to go with 4 and 6. Be Your Best is our pick to take it. And incidentally, we're leaving off the chalk because to me, to put them in the ticket when we want to bet against them, I mean, why spend the money if you really don't like them, and particularly at short prices? So we'll just kind of go for it from that perspective. Uh, in the alternative, if I thought they had the best chance to win, I would single both of them. But instead, I'll just leave them out. Leg 5, race 12. We're going to go with 1, 3, 6, 9, and 10 being a maiden. It looks pretty wide open, but Girls Rock looks like the best selection to me. So that's 2 times 4 times 2 times 5. That's an $80 ticket on a $1 base. And admittedly, we're going to take some chances, but I think it's the kind of sequence where you have to, and hopefully it'll bear fruit. Hope this analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy, and I wish you the best of luck as always. And of course, if you do like content like this, please like and subscribe. And again, thanks so much to all of you who continue on to grow our community. And we're going to continue on with the Spa every day. There's a featured stakes race. We'll have a post every day, time permitting. We're going to have our full card up and available. I think we will. I'm still endeavoring to get the website straightened out. We'll probably do it from there. You may get, I think maybe I'll put the full card out this weekend on the YouTube channel just because we are having some difficulty. But you can, later on, probably that's what we will do once we get things squared away. So just a heads up there. I've had some inquiries from you guys about that, so I just want to keep you abreast of what's going on, and I haven't forgotten about you, and we will try to account for sure. If we have to do individual emails to me, I will be happy to put together a card for you, and we can do it through Venmo or PayPal or whatever, some method. But anyway, you'll have all the details if that's something you'd like to pursue, and I'll probably have more about that next week. So that's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.